That evening, Darius sat on his back porch as twilight sank over Norman. The cicadas were loud, the sky awash of purples and oranges. He watched a squirrel dart across the fence line and disappear into a tree. His phone was finally online, the Wi-Fi extender fully functional, humming quietly like it had always belonged. He could have posted the incident. He could have gone viral. Black man harassed by cops while fixing Wi-Fi. It wouldn't have been the first story like that. And that was the problem. He didn't want to be a moment. He wanted to be a neighbor. Across the street, the Holbrook's lights were on. Madison was in her room, curled on the edge of her bed, phone face down. Her father sat beside her. "I really messed up," she whispered. "You did," he said quietly. "But now you get to decide what you do about it." They sat there for a long while, not talking, just listening to the sound of their house settling into nighttime. Eventually, Madison opened her laptop. She typed "implicit bias" into the search bar. Then, "how to be an ally." It wasn't enough. Not yet. But it was something. The next morning, Darius opened his front door to find a small note taped to the porch railing. No signature. Just blocky handwriting on lined paper. "We're glad you're here. If you ever need a hand with something, knock. Your neighbors." He turned the paper over. Nothing else. No name. Just the quiet possibility that maybe, not today, but someday, this neighborhood could learn to do better. And maybe, just maybe, suspicion could be replaced with recognition. Fear with familiarity. And silence with a simple, "Hey, need any help?" By the next morning, the story had gone viral. Not just in Greenville. Not just in South Carolina. National news outlets were all over it. MSNBC ran a panel on racial profiling and digital discrimination. CNN interviewed Donald's cousin, who was a cybersecurity professor in Chicago. The hashtags #fixing Wi-Fi while black and #ask before you call began trending globally. And then, inevitably, the backlash came. Not all of it was supportive. "What was she supposed to do?" asked one popular conservative commentator. "She saw someone acting suspicious in her neighborhood. She called the police. That's what we tell people to do." Other talking heads debated proper protocol for neighborhood vigilance, framing it as a matter of safety rather than profiling. Meanwhile, an entirely different storm was brewing locally. Eleanor James, the woman who made the call, was suddenly the target of online harassment. Her address was leaked. Her work, an insurance brokerage, reported that she'd been put on leave pending investigation due to the public controversy. Local activists were split. Some felt justice was being served. Others said the focus should stay on policing, not vilifying individuals. Donnell watched it all unfold from the couch, his phone buzzing constantly. His mother had insisted on coming down from Charlotte. She sat beside him, holding his hand the way she used to when he was 7 and had night terrors. She didn't say much, just stroked his hair and whispered, "You don't have to carry this alone." He nodded, but the pressure was still there. Like a boulder strapped to his chest. Because deep down, he knew this wasn't just about Wi-Fi. Or Eleanor. Or even the cops. This was about something older. Something systemic. And it wasn't going away with a trending hashtag. Chapter 10, An Invitation. The email subject line was simple. "We'd like to talk," from City Hall. Donnell didn't open it at first. It sat in his inbox for hours while he paced around the apartment, trying to ignore the sound of news alerts pinging from the television. When he finally clicked on it, the message was surprisingly short. "Dear Mr. Williams. Mayor Tessa Grant would like to meet with you to discuss what happened and how we as a city can move forward. Please let us know your availability. Respectfully. Dana Armitage. Executive Assistant to Mayor Tessa Grant." Donnell rubbed his face. The last thing he wanted to do was become a symbol. He didn't want cameras, didn't want headlines. He just wanted his life back. But as he sat there, thinking of the teen girl who'd waved at him that day, her eyes wide with understanding, he realized it wasn't just about him anymore. So he responded. Chapter 11, The Meeting. City Hall smelled like lemon floor polish and old policy. Donnell had never been inside before. As a kid, it had seemed like some far-off fortress for the elite. But now, walking through the glass doors, he felt like he belonged there just as much as anyone else. Mayor Tessa Grant greeted him personally. She was younger than he expected, mid-40s, sharp blue suit, braids pulled back into a professional bun. Her handshake was firm. Her eyes, empathetic. "I'm not going to pretend we've got it all figured out," she said once they sat. "But I want to listen." Donnell nodded. "That's a good start." They talked for an hour. He told her what it felt like. The humiliation. The rage. The helplessness when the cuffs snapped shut. She told him about the training initiatives already in place for police, how they clearly hadn't been enough. She didn't make excuses, though. She said the city failed him, and she meant it. By the end of the meeting, Donnell had a proposal. "I'm not looking to sue. I'm not here for revenge. But I want real changes. Training's one thing. But we need more community involvement. More accountability." Mayor Grant leaned forward. "What do you have in mind?" "A task force. Civilian-led. Made up of people who've actually lived through these kinds of encounters." She raised an eyebrow, intrigued. He added, "And I want local tech students to help build a community app, one that gives people direct access to resources before calling 911. Information, outreach options, maybe even local volunteer mediators." The mayor smiled. "I think we can make that happen." Chapter 12, The Apology. A few days later, Donnell received another unexpected message. This time, it was from Eleanor James. He stared at the email for a full 10 minutes before opening it. "Mr. Williams. I owe you an apology. Not the kind of apology people make when they're scared of being sued or cancelled. I mean a real one. I made a snap judgment that day based on my own fears, biases, and ignorance. You were trying to fix your Wi-Fi. That's it. I am so sorry for the pain I caused you. If you're willing, I'd like to speak with you in person. No cameras. Just two people trying to move forward. Respectfully. Eleanor James." Donnell didn't reply right away. He needed to sit with it. He showed it to his mother. She nodded solemnly. "That's rare," she said. "You don't have to meet her. But it means something that she reached out." After 2 days, he wrote back. Chapter 13, The Conversation. They met at the local library. Neutral ground. Eleanor looked different in person, smaller than he remembered. Her eyes were red, not from crying, but exhaustion. She apologized again. In person this time. And Donnell, surprisingly, forgave her. Not because she deserved it. But because holding on to that pain was poisoning him. They talked for over an hour. About fear. About neighbors. About what trust really meant. At the end, Eleanor said something unexpected. "I want to join your task force. If you'll have me." Donnell hesitated, then nodded. "We need everyone at the table." Chapter 14, The Pilot. The app went live 6 months later. Bridgeline, they called it. It was simple, elegant, and powerful. At the touch of a button, neighbors could request a wellness check from trained community responders, non-police volunteers with de-escalation training. There were options for anonymous communication, mental health resources, even neighborhood watch forums that emphasized awareness over suspicion. The pilot began in 3 zip codes. In the first month, 37 calls that would have gone to 911 were instead handled by the community team, with 0 arrests, 0 violence, and 0 escalation. Donnell stood on stage during the app's soft launch, flanked by Mayor Grant, local activists, and, yes, Eleanor James. "I never wanted to be in this position," he told the crowd. "But now that I'm here, I want to build something better. Because this isn't just about me. It's about all of us." The audience erupted in applause. Chapter 15, Ripples. Bridgeline's success began to catch national attention. NPR did a feature on the pilot program, highlighting how tech, empathy, and community engagement could work together to prevent unnecessary escalation. Other cities reached out, Durham, Oakland, Detroit, each curious about how to replicate the model. Donnell found himself in rooms he never imagined he'd be in, speaking at community forums, being interviewed by tech ethicists, even sitting on a panel for public safety innovation at a statewide summit. But for every spotlight moment, there were growing pains. Some members of the police union opposed the idea, calling Bridgeline vigilantism. Others feared it undermined their authority. A few even staged a brief walkout in protest of the city's support. But Mayor Grant stood firm. And so did the city council, which voted 5-2 to expand the pilot to the entire Greenville metro area. "We're not replacing public safety," the mayor told the press. "We're redefining it." Chapter 16, Learning to See. Donnell visited a high school one morning to speak to seniors in a civic engagement class. He wore jeans and a plain hoodie, still uncomfortable with the attention, but trying to own the role people now saw him in. He spoke candidly, "I wasn't trying to be a hero. I was just trying to fix my Wi-Fi. And I got arrested for it." The class was silent. Then one student, a tall, lanky kid with thick glasses, raised his hand. "What would you have done if you'd been in her shoes?" he asked. Donnell paused. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I hope I would have started with a question before assuming the worst." Afterward, 3 students came up to him. One was Latina, one Asian American, one black. All had stories of being misunderstood, mislabeled, or feared. "You made us feel seen," one of them said. Donnell didn't know how to respond. So he just nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. Chapter 17, A Letter from His Father. It came by mail. Actual, physical mail. Donnell hadn't heard from his father in years. Not since he was 15, when the man disappeared after a bitter divorce and an even uglier custody battle. The envelope was thick, the handwriting tight and unfamiliar. Inside, a letter. "Son. I saw what happened. I saw you on the news. I saw how you handled it. And I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. I know I wasn't the father you needed. I can't undo that. But I'm here now, if you want me to be. No pressure. Just love. Marcus." Donnell sat with that letter for a long time. He didn't write back right away. But he didn't throw it out either. He placed it in the top drawer of his desk. Maybe some doors didn't have to stay closed forever. Chapter 18, Full Circle. 1 year later, Donnell walked the same sidewalk where everything began. It was a warm spring day. Birds chirped overhead. A group of kids rode bikes past him, laughing. He glanced up at the house, Eleanor's old place. She'd moved 2 months ago, relocating to a smaller place on the other side of town. The new neighbors were a young couple who ran a local food co-op. The air didn't feel heavy anymore. He looked down at his phone. A notification pinged from the Bridgeline app. Community assist requested, elderly man with memory issues found wandering. It had already been resolved. A neighbor had stayed with the man until his daughter arrived. No police. No panic. Just people helping people. Donnell smiled. He started walking again. Chapter 19, Legacy. Bridgeline was now operating in 13 cities. The model had evolved, incorporating mental health experts, housing coordinators, even conflict mediators trained in restorative justice. Donnell had hired a full-time team. The nonprofit had partnerships with local governments, HBCUs, and tech incubators. But more than that, it had started a conversation. About assumptions. About the cost of fear. About the kind of community we want to build. And every time someone fixed a misunderstanding without calling the cops, every time someone asked instead of assumed, that conversation got louder. Donnell didn't want to be the face of it forever. He knew movements needed more than one voice. But for now, he was proud of what had been built. Not just an app. A shift. Chapter 20, What Happens Next? There's no perfect ending. Racism doesn't vanish because of one story. Profiling doesn't disappear because of one app. But something changed. A man was fixing his Wi-Fi. He was seen as a threat. He was cuffed, humiliated, nearly broken. But he stood up. He spoke out, and he built something. What happens next? That's up to us. Epilogue, 5 years later. Donnell adjusted the collar of his dress shirt as the auditorium filled. Bridgeline's annual summit had outgrown its modest community center beginnings. It now packed regional convention halls and drew leaders from across the country. A banner read, Bridgeline 2029, Building the Next Normal. He scanned the crowd, educators, housing advocates, urban planners, even a contingent from Oslo studying the model for international adaptation. He walked on stage to modest applause. He wasn't a celebrity. He never wanted to be. But here, in this space, people understood what he represented. 5 years ago, Donnell began, I was mistaken for a threat because I had a wrench in my hand and the wrong color skin. Today, that same street has trained volunteers, a conflict mediation hotline, and a digital backbone that connects neighbors instead of dividing them. He paused. But this isn't just about me. This is about you. It's about a country learning how to see itself differently. And to ask a better first question, what's really going on here? The crowd stood. Not for him. For the idea. Bonus, interview with Eleanor Moore, 5 years later. NPR transcript, This American Life. Segment title, The Woman at the Window. Host, Eleanor Moore made a 911 call that changed everything. Today, we talk to her about regret, growth, and what she sees now that she didn't back then. Host, Eleanor, what do you remember most about that day? Eleanor, the silence after they took him away. I sat by my window thinking I had done the right thing. I was wrong. I assumed. And I've had to live with that. Host, how do you feel about Donnell now? Eleanor, grateful. Not because he forgave me, he never said those exact words. But because he didn't let it stop him. He built something. And that gave me a chance to rebuild too. Host, what would you say to others who find themselves where you were? Eleanor, stop. Ask. Listen. Fear is loud. But truth is quieter. You have to choose to hear it. Bonus, Bridgeline Case Study, Greenville. Bridgeline Internal Memo, Year 5 Metrics Summary, Excerpt. Incidents de-escalated without police involvement, 12,417. 911 call deflections via app-assisted mediation, 34% average. Community Volunteer Network, 8,932 trained members. Secondary effects. 16% drop in non-emergency police dispatches. 11% increase in neighborhood satisfaction surveys. 27% increase in cross-cultural engagement events. Quote from community member, anonymous survey. Bridgeline made it feel okay to talk to my neighbors again. Like we're all part of something shared. Not just living side by side. Bonus, from Donald's Journal. January 8, 2029. I still think about how close I came to disappearing into that system. One night in jail can fracture a life. What saved me wasn't strength, it was visibility. A few voices refusing to let me be invisible. If this journal ever becomes public, let it show, I didn't build Bridgeline alone. I stood on shoulders. I leaned on kindness. I made 1,000 mistakes. But I kept walking. And others walked with me.